Cast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, hi everybody, and good evening here from Finland, and a happy time of day to wherever you may be, even in the middle of the night. Well, we are continuing now our work with the science of triangles, and this is our 71st program, at least as far as I know. Pretty close anyway. And have in your chat box the Zoom registrations for the identify as being tomorrow night, Thursday. I have also for Friday night the Zoom link for a treatise on cosmic fire in depth, and then we'll be back to you on this question of whether you want to join the esoteric United Nations work, and there we have to take a pledge for those who want to continue with it. So I'm going to try to arrange a time where that pledge can be taken, and then we'll have a meeting also of the committed group on the 20th. Let me see what that may be. The 20th looks like it's a Monday. Is that going to be correct, Michael? A Monday?
Yes, it's Monday. It's the day of the new moon.
Ah, right. Okay, very good. Okay. So I just want to welcome those of you who have made it. Anna and Anne and Annette and Aurea, Barbara, Brennan, Britta, Catherine, Chris, Frida, and Georgina, and Jan, and Joe, and Joan, and Johi, and Karen, Carrie, Mariana, and Mariut, Mirna, Nienke, Risto, Sandra, Tia, Vicky, and Walter, and Zenaidi. And then over here, our very capable and willing staff is present. BL, Joe, Michael, and well, I'm there too. You know, I'm willing. I don't know if I'm capable, but I'll do my best. Just want to ask you now, do you remember that we discussed the triangle Aries? I think it was, let's see here. Yeah, it was Leo, Sagittarius, and Aquarius. I want to just, that was last time we were together, and I just, to impress these many, many triangles upon our consciousness, occasionally we have to review what we have done. And so just think for a moment about Leo, Sagittarius, and Aquarius and what it means to you. Now, I just want to say that the triangles we're going to be looking at, and especially the ray triangles, can all of them be interpreted at different stages of evolution. For instance, the ray triangle of Aries, Leo, and Capricorn will always bring in the first ray. But will it be the first ray as the ordinary non-aspiring individual uses it? Will it be in the state of aspiration and discipleship, its application, or will it be, let us say, for the initiate? So it doesn't always mean the same thing, and neither does Leo, Sagittarius, and Aquarius. They have kind of a generalized meaning together, but you can imagine that the person who uses this triangle is going to be at a certain stage of evolution and is not going to change stages of evolution for each of the different signs that it may emphasize. Let's just say a person with, let's say, the Sun in Leo and Sagittarius rising, and maybe Aquarius emphasized in some other way as the sign opposite the Sun sign in Leo, will have an orientation towards something higher, but they will be at a specific stage of evolution. So I just want to say that when you think of a triangle, part of which or all of which may show up in your chart, you always have to know where you are as a disciple, more or less, and what are your goals. Every true disciple is being prepared for initiation. And every true aspirant, that's how DK refers to it, has taken the first initiation. So at least, you know, in being with DK's work and applying ourselves to it in a concentrated manner, we want to make sure that we have been within the range of possibility of taking the first initiation or have taken it. Sometimes people think, well, you know, it's just the first initiation, but it's really a big deal, actually. And of course, many dedicated students have that period of life behind them, and they know it somehow, and they fulfill the requirements. You know, they try to make their life more beautiful, and they're interested in the esoteric studies, and they are raising their sacral energy to the creative throat center, and they feel a new inclusiveness and opening of the heart, you know, all kinds of requirements that they know internally that give them the signal that, you know, probably they have passed through that. Now, what I'd like to do then is just read a little bit of what we did last time and then go on to our next triangle that we're going to be considering. Okay, he's talking about a dual process, and it can be seen if it is realized that three great signs, Leo, Sagittarius, and Aquarius, are today, well, that was back in the 30s, okay, but a day can be rather long when you're talking about occultism, are today exceedingly active and working in close relation to each other. And these are the three signs whose energies are affecting humanity as a whole, as a kingdom in nature. Okay, so he's taking up certain triangles having effects on human consciousness, and this we studied. So let's get this firmly in our mind, because we want to know what these signs mean to our consciousness, what these triangles mean to our consciousness, because the science of esoteric astrology, and in general, the whole science of relations, lies behind the science of triangles. And so our work is to understand the manner in which these great zodiacal triangles and even greater triangles lie behind all that is developing within humanity. So if you have some of these signs in your chart, remember you can use the planets in a certain way, and then you can shift up a bit and use the signs. Leo, the sign of the self-conscious individual, is potent in its mass effect, and today, through the stress of circumstance and the dire result of certain events, probably the wars going on at that time, it was the interlude between the two outbreaks of the war, thousands of men and women are stepping out of the ranks of the mass conscious herd. That's Cancer. And out of the deep sleep of irresponsibility. So when the soul begins to really affect you, the very first effect is responsibility. Interesting, it's not just something pleasant, it is responsibility. And becoming aware of themselves as detached functioning entities. In other words, detached from the herd, detached from the mass. They are becoming very individual under Leo. Sagittarius is powerfully affecting the world aspirants and leading them towards those attitudes of mind which will produce an unswerving allegiance to spiritual values. Now, that's one of the key ideas about Sagittarius, is its unswervingness and an unalterable adherence to the good of humanity. Basically, what's happened is, let's just say you've become the individual and you have, in a way, been initiated under or in Leo. Under Leo means it's your rising sign. In Leo means it's your sun sign. And then you depart from that kind of separativeness of individuality, even though the word individual kind of means indivisible, and it kind of gives you a hint as to the type of consciousness you feel at the first initiation. And then you enter the realm of Sagittarius, which is active at the first and second initiations and gives you, gives you that one pointedness towards something higher than you have experienced up to that time, and will make a true aspirant out of you, or a true one-pointed disciple at a little later stage. And then comes Aquarius, the sign of the new age, and whoever has Aquarius in their chart prominently really has an opportunity at this time. Aquarius is, with equal potency, affecting the world disciples and initiates, but not only them. It gives us all a more inclusive, group-oriented attitude, leading them eventually to world service on a large scale. You can look at some of the great leaders, you know, like Franklin Roosevelt, like Abraham Lincoln, you know, powerful sun sign Aquarius. You can look at Sir Francis Bacon, who was certainly a fourth degree initiate at that time, and Sun in Aquarius, Mercury Aquarius, Aquarius rising. There are just many who really can take advantage of the Aquarian energy to decentralize themselves. And that arrow of Sagittarius points to a condition which is more and more decentralized from any kind of selfish individuality that you find initially in Leo. So world service on a large scale, producing group activity. It's the sign of the group, and actually Aquarius rules the hierarchy, if you will. We might say it this way. Here's another way to look at this triangle. We have Leo ruling the individual who feels himself to be separative and distinct. We have Sagittarius as kind of a bridge towards a wider type of inclusive living, pointing towards higher values. And we have Aquarius in the development of group consciousness. It is the hierarchy. I can give you another triangle. I'll give you this triangle, and we can ponder it for just a moment. Aquarius, no. Leo, Taurus, Aquarius. Leo, Taurus, Aquarius. I'm giving you that in a specific order. Okay. Now, why? Just think about that for a minute. Leo, Taurus, Aquarius. Well, it can mean many things, but let's just say we start out being the individual, quite feeling separative, distinct, our own unique person. You know, it borders on egoism if it's carried too far. But it is a sign of light, Leo is, the will to illumine. Okay, so a new light comes in. Then Taurus, the sign of the new group of world servers. So that's an even more illumined condition in relation to this particular triangle. We could, reverse the directions if we wanted to. And then, if we succeed in the new group of world servers, we make our way into hierarchy. And hierarchy is ruled by Aquarius. So from the very human aspect portrayed by Leo, we move to Taurus, which is a transitional stage where the individuals are associated with the hierarchy as disciples, and even as disciples of the first and second degree, especially the second degree. And then once the third degree is passed, Aquarius has a very big role to play. It plays a role in the second degree and the fourth degree and the fifth degree, but it's definitely a hierarchical sign. Now, how you arrange the triangle is important, because in this particular case, we would be traveling clockwise and not in the normal order of the signs, counterclockwise. So, you can play with these triangles and see what they mean to you and see how you can utilize them, and especially if some of them are found in your chart. Okay, I'm going to finish this and get on to today's work. So, world disciples, initiates, and so forth in Aquarius. And world service on a large scale, producing group activity. Always remember the group when it comes to Aquarius, and that living usefulness, which is the hallmark of the pledged disciple. So here he's connecting Aquarius with a point between the first and second initiations where the pledged disciple appears, and the accepted disciple, as far as that goes. You know, you can be at any stage of evolution and utilize these signs in a constructive manner. So that's what you have to do when you're really looking at your chart, is analyze how you are using particular signs constructively. And if interesting oppositions show up, or if interesting triangles show up, you know, you'll always want to consider the triangle of your moon sign, sun sign, and rising sign, because it shows you your progress. Okay. The influence of these three constellations is felt through their esoteric planets, and the mass movement in consciousness for which Leo is responsible, note that, can be noted as possible even by the novice when he realizes that the ruling planets of Leo, from all three angles, exoteric, esoteric, and hierarchical, are the sun. Okay, but remember, it's the sun veiling Jupiter, the sun veiling Neptune, the sun veiling Uranus. So let's suppose you have a triangle within aspect between Jupiter, Neptune, and Uranus. It's going to pull in the triple influence of Leo. The mass movement towards individual self-consciousness is today enormously intensified. Let's think about that. As is the parallel individual movement towards initiation. This is really an important one, what he's saying here. The mass movement towards individual self-consciousness is today enormously intensified, as is the paralleling individual movement towards initiation. And I would say, you know, if you're a student of Master DK, if you're a student of the ageless wisdom, you are moving away from the limitations of Leo into a more possible group consciousness. Because let's just say, even if you take the first initiation in or under Leo, the next initiation is all about fellowship, sisterhood. It's all about the group. And it has therefore a very strong Aquarian influence. So from Leo to Aquarius with Sagittarius, helping you move from initiation number 1 to initiation number 2. It's all very individual. You have to analyze yourself, where you stand, what you have to do, and how you can use the planets that you've been given, the rays that have been chosen by yourself as a soul and by the solar angel, and the astrology under which and in which you have been born. Okay. You know, it takes a little while to get these things into our consciousness. Leo appears again in another important triangle at this time: Aries, Leo, and Virgo. Okay, so what is that all about? And I'm going to just leave it this way while you ponder just for a moment what may be the your understanding of putting together the three energies of Aries, Leo, and Virgo. You probably know a little bit about it. I come forth, and from the plane of mind I rule. And I am that, I am that I am, or I am that and that am I, that's Leo. And Virgo, Christ in you, the hope of glory, or I am the mother and the child, I God, I matter am. So those mantrams tell you about what this triangle can be. So before we plunge into it, just think about it for a moment on your own terms. Aries, Leo, and Virgo. Aries, the sign of beginnings. Leo, the most human of all the signs, representing you as a spiritual individual, all kinds of individual. I mean, you can be non-spiritual or spiritual. And Virgo, the individual Christ, Christ consciousness, the individual Christ consciousness. And notice, I am the mother and the child. That's two aspects, right? I, God, also. I matter, am. You've got everything there. You have the God the Father, God the Mother, and God the Soul, who is the Son. It's a triple sign. It may be very materialistic in the beginning. Well, they all are in their own way. But eventually they represent the three aspects, or at least Virgo does, the three aspects of the Trinity. So let's see what DK has to say about this particular triangle. Leo appears again in another important triangle at this time. Now, temporal relativity. Temporal has to do with time, right? The different kinds of relationships that exist at different times according to the law of mutation. This has to be kept in mind. Different triangles will be important at different times, and different aspects of the triangles will be important, more important than the others at different times. Let's just say we've experienced some millions of years in the future, the Judgment Day. On Earth, Virgo will be very important because the cultivation of the Christ consciousness will be the objective of everybody. Now, it may not be called the Christ consciousness at that time, who knows? But that which the Christ is bringing to us now, everyone will be on the path. And 2/5 of humanity will be redirected for education to other locales, either within our planetary scheme or to different planets altogether. All of this is very little suspected. How would we know anything about it except for what Master ZK has given us? So, and well, we could even say, you know, we could interpret Aries, Leo, Virgo in terms of the fact that the Judgment Day has happened. 2/5 of humanity is no longer on our particular planet, and 3/5 are, and they are all on the path, which means they are entering the first initiation, at least, or have something to do with discipleship, which leads that way. And they are cultivating this soul consciousness. So we could interpret it in that way. Today it may be meaning something a little different, not quite as released as it will be in those future times. So this is all the law of mutation. Everything is changing relationship to everything else according to the time cycle that you are in. So Leo appears again in another important triangle at this time. Every time he says at this time, take a note because things are liable to change. A triangle which potently aids in inaugurating the new age. Now, when you look at the word inaugurate, immediately there should be a cross-reference to the sign Aries, because Aries is the sign of all inaugurations and beginnings and new methods of pressing forward. Aries is, for us, now inaugurating the new age. That new age will be distinguished by a truly self-aware humanity. Well, you wonder whether everybody will be, he's looking at humanity as a whole, far more self-aware than at present is the case, but not all. Because, you know, if you turn to the lotuses of passion and desire in a treatise on cosmic fire, you'll notice that they are divided into 5 groups. 2 of them were actually moonchain humanity, and they will be on the path soon, within our particular round and in our modern times. But 3/5 of them may have to wait until the next round, even though they come from the moonchain. So when we say a truly self-aware humanity, he's looking at it as a wholeness, and not that every single member of the how many billions there are will be truly self-aware. You know, progress isn't done in that way. There are those who individualized earlier, later, or much earlier, or still much more early, and their progress will reflect that. Anyway, things are going to get better. So the new age will be distinguished by a truly self-aware humanity, so Leo will be into the picture, conditioned by a steadily manifesting Christ consciousness, and that's Virgo. But now, although you might look at Aries and you might say, well, Aries just starts the whole thing going, which it does, we have to also remember that in relation to the individual Christ of Virgo, Aries rules the cosmic Christ. In other words, they're both Christic signs, and Virgo is individual, and Aries later becomes the sign of the cosmic Christ, a much larger embrace of the principle of love. So that's probably a little different meaning than he is attaching to Aries in this paragraph. Let's see. The potency of Aries, as it initiates those happenings which will set in motion the causes that will produce the new age. So in a way, Aries is instigating the new age of Aquarius, can be seen today in the trend of all new movements, in the formation of the various world orders. Aries has a lot of 7th ray, by the way. You may remember that rays 1 and 7 are transmitted through Aries. It can become regimentation, but it can also be a very useful new arrangement. It can be seen in these causes in the discoveries of science, breaking through into new possibilities, as particle physics is doing in relation to the first or the lowest level of the etheric plane, in the discoveries of science and maybe, let's say, of the etheric body, and in the emergence of the new types in the different kingdoms in nature. So Aries is all about the new, and interestingly about Aries, its hierarchical ruler is Uranus, the planet of the new, and also the major planet of Aquarius, Uranus, is showing up in the orthodox manner, exoteric, and showing up hierarchically when veiled by the moon. So Aries and Aquarius together are all about the new. Now, DK knows something about the science of cycles, obviously, and this activity has only been felt since 1835. I tried to play around with different cycles, and I couldn't exactly land on 1835, but I could land on 1825, 10 years earlier, which was halfway through. Let's see, we had 17, 18, 17, 18. We had a connection with the second ray, a connection with the seventh ray. We had the ashambolic impact at that time. We had a huge humanitarianism released. A whole new way of thinking was released in 1825. And why 1835? Well, why 2035? Why should 2035, or yeah, that's going to be it. Why should 2035 be a particular date when legislation for children will be sponsored by Russia and backed by the United States to Aquarius in their soul nations? So, we don't know basically too much about the science of cycles. We have a few crumbs from the table of the gods, and you might not know otherwise that the number 9 is the cyclic number for the third ray, and 5 the cyclic number for the second ray, and 1 the cyclic number for the first ray. You wouldn't know that except for what he's given, and we just have to take his word for it here, without perhaps knowing entirely why 1835 and 1825 is not 1825. Why is 1835 not 1825 when it was such a momentous year? So this activity toward the new, towards all kinds of new formulations to counteract the attack of the Black Lodge later in the century, has only been with us since 1835. You can almost see that some great Uranian thing was happening here. And then toward the end of the century, Mars came into the picture and sponsored what we might call the regime of blood and iron, which Germany, under Bismarck, brought into the world. And you kind of wonder here about the role of Lincoln as well. I guess he was just a young man at that time, only, probably, studying to be a lawyer or something. He was 26 years old at this time. But it was his century, in a way, as an avatar of a human type. And later it became opposed by the Bismarckian regime. Okay, so this activity towards the new, has only been felt since 1835. The potency of Leo can be traced since then. So this has something to do with an astrological cycle as well. Okay. Or Aquarius is emphasized, then Leo will be also. Okay, in other words, I'm trying to figure out why this is really so. What has 1835 to do with Leo? Okay, the potency of Leo can be traced since then. In other words, some kind of movement towards individuality, towards separating from the mass, towards true thinking on one's own, under and many more people doing it since 1835. And you can imagine that a Shambhala impact in 1825 would stir this individualism, for worse or for better. People really developing the will to think on their own and be self-determining. So the potency of Leo can be traced since then in the vast number of people who are achieving the integration of the personality and becoming self-conscious. Now, maybe many of you, you work in therapy, you work with astrology, you work as helpers and have worked as helpers. And maybe you've noticed that people come to you in various stages of integration. Not all are yet integrated personalities, and you do see the way that they lack that final kind of closure, making the personality one unit made of three parts. So, but increasingly, you see the urge towards integration. Carl Jung certainly noticed this, and he noticed an integrating center. Maybe he called it the self. He called it the individuating center. And it was responsible, he thought, for the kind of dream process which people were experiencing, showing their progress in becoming one, in becoming an integrated personality in relation to the individuating center. He was much different from Freud in that respect. So this is noticeable in the vast number of people who are achieving integration of the personality, becoming self-conscious, as well as that's phase one, as well as the emergence of thousands of self-conscious world aspirants, let's number ourselves there, who are subordinating gradually their integrated personalities to the good of the group. And you can see right there the progress from Leo to Aquarius, and maybe via the high-mindedness of Sagittarius. Now, it doesn't mean, that, in other words, having Leo, having Aquarius in your chart, it doesn't at all tell you where you are on the evolutionary spiral. You have to determine that in a different way. And once you have determined that through close analysis of what you do, what you need to do, how other people react to what you do, how you serve, all that, then you can interpret properly those signs in your chart. So we have to learn how to subordinate gradually our integrated personalities to group good. And it's right here that so many people get into trouble, because they're very pleased with their integrated personality, and they rather enjoy their selfhood on that level, and they don't really take the move towards the good of the group. So we have the phase one, you become self-conscious, and you begin to integrate the personality. And say stage two, you begin with an integrated personality and you move into the soul space, which is group consciousness, and you have in mind not only the good of the group, but you have in mind that your real identity is beyond what you call the individual. Your identity is the group. And eventually, Leo is it. It's the one, you know, it's the one. And your identity is the one. I am that, and that am I. Now, you see how you can analyze these triangles, and the fluid aspect here is the stage of evolution to which they are being applied, the different signs. Okay. Now the influence of Virgo appears. Let's see what he says. In the many religious, spiritual, and mental organizations, remember remember how very mental a sign Virgo can be, under Mercury, which is the exoteric ruler, but also in a way the exalted planet in Virgo. He seems to bring that to our attention. So Virgo has, you know, what goes through Virgo is a lot of the second ray of love wisdom and the sixth ray of devotion. That's what is coming through that sign, and hence the religious organizations. And since it is all three aspects of divinity, God and the mother and the child, it is spiritually related. I imagine that a lot of people in mental science would have this, is my guess. And okay, mental organizations and movements which indicate so directly the awakening of the Christ consciousness in humanity. Now that's on the individual basis. So it's an active triangle. It's an important one. These triangles thus can be seen as vibrant, living factors, producing world change and giving a tremendous push onward to human development. And I imagine he's here talking about this vision from on top of the mountain, a tremendous kaleidoscopic vision of moving energies. All of that lies ahead to the divine seer, who is the higher initiate. So we have a lot to prepare for, so we can see these things exactly. So now we have a triangle then that is called Aries, Leo, and Virgo. And now, you know, the next time we get together, it's going to be quite a complicated subject. It's going to deal with cosmic decanates, you know, and it's hard to understand exactly what he means. But the one thing we can understand is the great triangle of Taurus, Scorpio, and Pisces, but not in that order. The order would really be, again, Scorpio, Taurus, Pisces, or in other words, Hercules, the Buddha, and the Christ. But we'll delay on that one, and I'm happy about that too. It's a complicated subject, and we'll try to simplify it in such a manner that we can at least get the essence of it. But now here you are. You're faced with Aries, with Leo and Virgo. So what does it really mean? And there are different ways to interpret, but you're asserting yourself out of the mass consciousness. In other words, you decide something new is required. And you want to leave all that group mass think. Let me call it mass think, if we can even call it thinking. We'll call it mass response, mass illusion, mask, glamour. You want to leave all that behind. So Aries pushes you forward into what? Into a position of increasing separation from the mass via Leo. So you stand as an individual rather than as the product simply of what everybody else thinks and does, how they act, the tribe, the herd, you know. You don't want that anymore. And so you distinguish yourself via Leo, and you become noticeable for the gifts you are cultivating and for the gifts you share. And you stand apart with sensitivity. That's one of those Leo words, to what you are and what you are not. And there the fifth ray comes into play as well, because the fifth ray is the ray of cleavage, and it draws a line. This I am not. So the old idea that I have my own way really emerges here, a way that's different from the mass. But your individuality will increasingly grow in luminosity, light. Not just your will, but your light will grow. And then you will see that there's something higher. Of course, it's how the Sphinx operates in a way, because the Sphinx is the head of the woman and the body of the lion. So it's a moving forward into a more group, a Christ conscious. In other words, this higher power within you is detected, the higher of the pairs of opposites, and it helps you purify your consciousness of individualism, which borders on egoism. You know what I mean? We learn we really have to serve. And lessons in humility are taught in Virgo so that we can more fully develop this Christ consciousness in an individual sense. And then, you know, if we really want to make a big sweep, we come back to Aries, where the cosmic Christ, or a much higher form of love wisdom, is detected. But there are many other excuse me, many other signs along the way that you might have to go through. So, you know, we really have to appreciate the kind of astrology and the kind of science of relations backed by the science of triangles that DK has presented to us. It's really unique at this time in astrological thinking. And for that reason, it's rejected by many people who say, well, it's just too complex and it has all these other factors involved, and they'd rather stick to the old orthodox methods. But, you know, you get into the new arena via Aries, you establish yourself there as an individual human being via Leo, and maybe you take the, let's just say, the first initiation under Leo eventually. And then you have to clean up the condition of the astral body and the physical body in order to take the second initiation, which has in connection with it, naturally, Ray 2 and Ray 6. Why? Because it's the initiation of the astral plane, which is, I don't know, I don't have it here, but anyway, you'll know. It's 6 from the top, 2 from the bottom. It's a 6-2 situation. And it involves very much planets that have the second ray and the sixth ray. What does it involve? It involves Venus, strong second ray, other rays too, of course. Jupiter, strong second ray soul, and Neptune, second ray and sixth ray and second ray. So we need a lot of that love energy to take the second initiation. And we are led into it. Virgo makes it possible. Other signs of the zodiac also contribute to the second initiation. And in the video book that I made on the egoic lotus, I go over those, how you can use the different signs to take the first initiation, the second initiation, the third, and so forth. But Virgo signals that the Christ consciousness is really growing in you. And that is the major quality of the second initiation. So the Buddhic energy, the love energy, takes the place of this glamorous, illusory way of being and thinking. Maybe we can say we are under the analysis of Virgo. We break up the kama manas, which means that the mind and the kama, or the emotions, desires, are so inextricably connected that we cannot separate them. But Virgo is a pretty good separator because it's so analytical. So it prepares the field to really establish the Christ consciousness. Now, when does the Christ consciousness really get established? Well, you could say we have to wait to the third initiation, and even more so the fourth, which involves the fourth ray, and particularly the heart center, more than ever before. So, Aries, Leo, Virgo, from initial steps to the individual to the increasingly group conscious Christ consciousness under Virgo. Okay. Now, friends, that's as far as I'm going to go. You know, I just take a little few chunks at a time, not too much, hopefully. And when we have questions or, you know, statements, we can either ask regarding these two triangles we have discussed today, which are Leo, Sagittarius, Aquarius, or Aries, Leo, Virgo, or, if you wish, anything in occultism at all. I mean, I decided that that's the way to go, because in occultism you can always get from any point to any other point quite eventually directly. So this is page 486, basically.
We began on 485 and ended on 486.
Okay, good. All right, thanks, Mike. Okay, so this is get rid of that 484. Boy, are we making progress here. And this is the 15th. And the next will be the 22nd, and it will be morning, at least morning in Europe. And we'll just have to see how all that works out, and that'll be the AM time. All right. So now it's time to think together, and either something on the material we've been looking at, or something, you see, let's just say that whatever triangle you may come up with, there is a way to interpret it in relation to the stage of evolution at which you find yourself. But Some triangles are just more important than others for us at this time. And DK says, look, I just can't possibly go through all of these, but I will give you some of the ones that are most important for humanity at this time, and therefore for you and me and all human beings at this time. Okay, so now,
Michael,
yes, Michael.
before we get to Karen, Carrie has two comments that directly address your wondering about 1835.
Yeah.
He
Okay.
writes, Oliver Twist, focusing on child welfare, was published in 1836.
Interesting. Very interesting.
And
Dickens.
yes, and Schumann's Scenes from Childhood, the first music to be written specifically for and about children, was composed in 1838.
Okay, all right. As only a musician would know. Excellent. Thank you for that. I'm thinking of, I have running a melody in my mind from Schumann. Um, I'll spare you all and I won't sing it for you, but it is about that scenes from childhood. And it strikes me, maybe I'm getting confused with 1935 and 1936, because these were goodwill years when the first stanza of the great invocation was released. May the forces of light bring illumination to mankind and so forth. But that is an interesting correlation, Carrie. And what I'm thinking about this is that for the people who know history and, really make a study of modern history, certain emergences will tell the story of the esoteric energies behind that which is emerging. And this is an example. And I think Stephen Pugh did this with ray cycles at some point, and there are these books that basically tell you what are the main things happening for each year, and they go back some time. And I think there was quite a correlation between the subjective cycles of rays and, of course, astrology correlating with these more objective kind of appearances of different events. It's a bit like studying intellectual history. Where do the ideas come from? And it's a bit like looking for what kind of outgrowths could occur when dealing with the ending and beginning of specific cycles and their peaking, because ray cycles tend to peak in positivity and then they degenerate a bit and lower aspects of the rays manifest. So that has to be taken into consideration too. It's a huge study, and by the time we're a master and have all knowledge on the third level of the atmic plane, we'll be absolutely qualified to do this. So thank you for those thoughts. I keep that melody is running through my mind. I'm beginning to wonder. We had a pianist at a conference, and she was playing Schumann, and I think I don't know what she was playing, whether it was scenes from childhood or whether that's a pianistic piece. But she was playing something that's running through my mind and reminds me of what you just said. So let's go on.
Okay. Karen, you are self-muted.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, thank you. Michael, I believe you said it one.
Get a little closer, Karen.
I believe, can you hear me?
Yes, now I do.
Okay. I believe you said at one of our webinars that Leo is involved in all the initiations. Is that correct?
Okay, let me get the word. That blank is involved in all the initiations?
Leo.
Leo. I can take Leo from the first to the fifth initiation quite easily. I can do that for Capricorn as well, because he basically says so. And there's no sign of the zodiac which cannot contribute either to preparation for an initiation or for the likelihood of its being taken if the person is at that stage. Now, just by looking at an astrological chart, you cannot tell where the person is. A lot of people would wish it were so, but it just isn't. You have to know, you have to study the person otherwise. But the illumination, let's just say that Leo in a way rules the entire causal body. It's one of those signs that's connected with the radiance of the egoic lotus, and it becomes the higher power at the first initiation. And at the second initiation, the fact that it is the love wisdom sign of the three fire signs emerges, because illumination takes the place of distortion on the astral plane. And when it comes to the third initiation, it blazes forth in glory, and that we call that glorification or transfiguration. So there is the majority that occurs. The great sign Leo dominates at that point. Whatever is found below in the personality, and you really get the soul-infused personality at least 3/4 of the way through. In the fourth initiation, Leo is compromised in one way, because there is the destruction of the egoic lotus causal body, which it rules. But from another point of view, a higher Leo is your monad. And we are told that at the fourth initiation, the monad comes into much fuller direct power. So the true authority, the true commander, I don't know what, language I can use here, the boss, comes into power. The spirit is becoming very directly dominant. By the fifth initiation, we are the master, and we stand at the apex or at the acme of the human kingdom. Once we become a Chohan, we are no longer men as are the masters. That's the quote. We have moved beyond that. But you can probably, I just want to say that you can probably apply Leo to the sixth initiation also, because Leo is your true identity. And in this case, it's your monadic identity. And according to your monadic identity, most people, if they choose a right, will make a decision about which of the 7 or 9 cosmic paths to take. So at the sixth initiation, it's usually a Libra initiation, but Leo has, and Sagittarius directs you outward toward some constellation or other eventually. But Leo is who you are. And Leo is also the ruler of the sea of fire and is ruled by the sun at the seventh initiation. And it's the initiation of resurrection in one way, but it's also the sort of ultimate place for Leo on the cosmic physical plane. And since Leo represents love, wisdom in the sequence of 3 fire signs, we're dealing with the seventh initiation, which is the love wisdom initiation. So there are a lot of ways to look at this. Leo at the fifth initiation, Leo as your true identity as at the sixth initiation, even though Libra is and Sagittarius are very important signs. And then finally, Leo in the sea of fire for the seventh initiation. And actually, that is the hierarchical ruler there. Leo and whatever sign you can, whatever planet you can make as the peak of the Leo experience on the cosmic physical plane. So, you know, in a way, Gemini is love wisdom too. And Gemini is very connected with the seventh initiation. But Leo is your identity. And it is blazing forth monadically as a liberated monad at the seventh initiation. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, even at our stage, Leo is very important. And since a lot of us would hope, you know, within the next several lives or whatever, to see the transfiguration occur, the glorification of the soul personality, Leo would be really, really important. Now, when we come to mastership, that's another matter, and that lies even further ahead. It's going to be Capricorn, which is the distinctive ruler of the third initiation, but Leo plays its role, and those two are always working out in terms of the old story of the lion and the unicorn, where the lion is the king of beasts, a lower version of Leo, and is slain by the unicorn, white and one pointed, representing the initiate consciousness. So the personality consciousness is per se is slain by the initiate consciousness. But what a sign is just depends on the level of evolution to which it is being applied and in relation to which it is being interpreted. So then the answer to your question is yes. All five.
Thank you, Michael. Vicky writes, I thought I read in AAB that Gemini was the ruler of the hierarchy because its esoteric ruler is Venus, and Venus is the alter ego of the Earth. I believe you said Aquarius was the ruler of the hierarchy.
Yeah.
I can't remember where in AAB I read that. Am I remembering incorrectly?
I never found that Gemini was the ruler of the hierarchy, but it is definitely connected with the higher and lower pairs of opposites, because it is the esoteric ruler. Of course, it's also, you know, Earth gets involved there as well. And if we want to look planetarily at the higher and lower pairs of opposites, we have a contrast between Venus representing the higher and Mars representing the lower of the pairs of opposites. It's kind of a quarrel. Well, you know, we sometimes call it the battle of the sexes, but in fact, it's much more than that. It's the Venus as the representative of the soul fighting out with Mars representing the personality. And Gemini, in a way, represents that duality of higher and lower. There's a lot of things we can say about Pollux and Castor, but I'm not going to get into it too much. Pollux is a single supergiant star, and Castor, representing the personality, is actually three groups of double stars, which really fits with how you divide a plane. Now, hierarchy is much more than Venus. See, this is the thing. The great creativity of the hierarchy well, first of all, hierarchy has all the signs, all of them, and so does Shambhala. But the great creativity and group consciousness of hierarchy is represented by Aquarius. Gemini, let's see, Aquarius rules universal mind and is connected in that way with the Great Bear. Gemini rules, Libra rules supermind and therefore the spiritual triad. And Gemini is considered to be the sign that has the battle going on for the aspiring disciple between his soul and his personality. But we're also told that on a very, very high level, with the love wisdom initiation of resurrection, which is the seventh initiation, has a lot to do with Gemini. And that's even, of course, that's beyond the hierarchy in a certain sense. So when we're taking, the Christ has been taking the seventh initiation for a long time. And the high point of love is reached at a certain stage in Gemini, which is the considered to be the head of the cosmic Christ, and therefore is involved with this initiation that takes Christ to the right hand of God, symbolically speaking, and into the sea of fire. Also, interestingly, the two great brothers, the Buddha and the Christ, are represented by interpreting Gemini in a positive manner. And they are both, in a way, residents of Shambhala and are acclimating themselves to the seventh plane, or the sea of fire. And so that's another outpicturing of how Gemini is involved with that seventh initiation. Let's just say Aquarius, as the sign of creative group consciousness, is definitely associated with the hierarchy, and just the way Taurus is with the new group of world servers. Now, probably there are a number of references and inferences from those references which give us that idea, which present that idea. And I think when you're analyzing the houses esoterically of the 12 houses of the astrological chart, when you get to the 11th house associated with Aquarius, it is the hierarchical house. When you're dealing with Gemini, it's about pretty much higher and lower mind. That's one way of thinking about it. And another way of thinking about it is in terms of the resurrection. But let's just say there's a lot more to hierarchy than any one sign, including Aquarius. So Christ went through all the 12 signs. Remember, at that point, DK elaborated on this a little bit. He said, when the Christ set his face toward Jerusalem, he was undergoing the Sagittarian experience. Maybe when he allowed John the Baptist, or insisted that John the Baptist baptize him, it was a kind of a watery Piscean experience. All 12 of the signs were involved in his life, and all 12 of the signs are involved in the shambolic energy qualities. So not just Gemini, but the other air signs too are very important, and you can find a way that each sign of the zodiac is connected with the hierarchy. It's a big study, I think. Okay, was that Vicky, was it?
That was Vicky. There are no more written comments at this point.
Okay.
And no hands raised.
Okay, now if you I've decided about this, that, you know, if you want to ask anything about occultism, it doesn't mean I know the answer, okay, but at least we put it out there. If you want to ask anything about occultism that you may have in your mind, these different programs can have space for that. So I broaden the field, and, you know, you can take all of DK's work or whatever, and if there's something that is of interest to you, you can bring it up at this point. Let's just have a few moments of silence to see if there is anything of interest in that manner. I have so many things that I could, you know, say, oh, I'm interested in this, and I can't solve it yet, but I'd like to, you know. Maybe you have some of those things yourself. You know, I have one more thing to say. That last question was a good one, and see, let's take a look at what rules what. Venus rules the higher three planes of the mental plane, the higher three subplanes, and it's connected also with the monastic permanent atom, as the Earth may be connected with the mental unit, looked at in a larger sense. When it comes to Buddhi, the Buddhic plane, the rulers, it's no longer Venus, even though Venus has a high Buddhic development in a more cosmic sense. So its emotional body, the emotional body of Venus, we are told, it says all these planetary gods have emotional bodies. 2, it is working on the Buddhic, the 6th subplane of the emotional plane cosmically. And it's transiting from the 5th to the 6th, and Earth is trying to transit from the 4th, where all the battles take place, onto the 5th. So Venus at the moment has a monastic quality to it. When it's functioning completely in its monad, which is the 6th and 2nd ray monad, then we will find other ways to position it. When it comes to the Buddhic plane, Jupiter and Neptune are very important, even as they are important on the monadic plane. So Jupiter, Neptune, and Mercury are 3 planets. They have many associations, but they are a triangle. They are a Buddhic triangle: Jupiter, Mercury, Neptune. When it comes to the plane of spiritual will, which is Atma, the 2 planets you want to watch out for are particularly Saturn, it rules that whole plane in a way, and Vulcan for spiritual will. And Uranus, interestingly enough, we can pinpoint it in some ways, but Uranus seems to rule the entire group of cosmic ethers. So now I find that I have to do this. Just take a second. And a picture is worth 1,000 words, you know, so. So I'm hoping that I can get this. That in a way, Uranus rules all 4 of these cosmic ethers. They all have their planetary connections. Now, you know what's interesting? At the 2nd initiation, the three planets that are focused to take that initiation are Venus, Jupiter, and Neptune. But when it comes to the Buddhic plane and bringing more and more Buddhi into the causal body, the three planets connected are Mercury, Jupiter, and Neptune. So Mercury is an older planet than Venus, but in terms of its soul, it definitely is connected with the fourth plane. Venus will have to wait until it gets into its monadic aspects to be connected with the soft line. Right now, we consider Venus quite a bit connected with ray 5, its soul ray. Now, ray 5 is very important in the Aquarian age because the final decanate ruler of Aquarius is Venus, and a major ray 5 transmission comes through the sign Aquarius, or the constellation sign Aquarius. So it's going to be a scientific age, but it's also going to be an age of brotherhood, because we will have some of the highest qualities of Venus, the 6 and the 2, beginning to operate to bring us into that brotherhood, which is typical of the hierarchy. So there's a lot of, little intricacy in here about how the planets can be applied to the different levels. Okay, now has that given anybody a chance to bring up anything that you may want to discuss relative to the field of occultism?
It most certainly has.
Okay.
Karen asked another question, and she wrote, "It may take more time than we have. Asked at the conference and the ceremony workshop, what is the difference between the celestial hierarchies and the creative hierarchies, or are they the same?"
Well, the word creative hierarchies, I'll go to the map. See, there are celestial hierarchies of angels, but it goes even beyond that. I want to go to this map. In one way, they're the same, and in one way, the term celestial hierarchies can be extended beyond the word creative hierarchies. So let me see here. This is AAB diagrams, and here are the liberated and here are the creative hierarchies. Okay. Now, the creative hierarchies, as they are usually named, are these 12. Whoop. These 12. Some of them are liberated onto the cosmic astral plane. The 5th down is not yet liberated. It's still on it's transitional between the lowest level of the cosmic astral plane and the highest level. It's still on the highest level of the cosmic physical plane and is undergoing preparation for liberation, but basically DK has put it here in relation to the lowest level. They are all aggregates of monads. Creative hierarchies are aggregates of monads of a certain caliber of expression. The aggregation of monads goes on and on and on beyond our ability to trace. As a matter of fact, this little diagram here, which is a theosophical thing, gives you an idea of the amalgamation of the monads. That 7 become 1, and then 7 become 1, and 7 become 1, and on they go. Aggregations of monads are creative. Aggregations of monads are creative and could be called creative hierarchies. But DK stops. He stops right here. I knew a man in Finland here who was really into this. He was a third ray type, and he extended this table on way beyond the cosmic astral plane to the cosmic mental. He just extended it in a certain order. It was purely an intellectual exercise, I think, as much as I was able to understand it. So all of those hierarchies extended would be creative hierarchies, but DK has limited our focus to these 12. And really, our real focus is in this lower 5, or maybe lower 6, which would take in our monad in our monadic vehicles. But just remember, different groupings of monads are differently unfolded. And they're all, in a way, every monad is equal to every other monad because a monad is essentially spirit. And there's only one spirit. There's only one being. There's only one monad in all of cosmos. But there are these divisions which exist caused by self-limiting self-perception. The division into many monads is because of emanation. And emanation occurs through ever more self-limiting self-perception. In other words, I see less of myself, less of myself, less of myself, less of myself. It's always the monad, but the scope of expression of those reduced self-perceptions gets smaller and smaller. So creative hierarchies, okay. That's what DK means when he talks about them. And even though we could go beyond this point, theoretically, we'd be in areas probably before long that even the planetary logos does not understand. Don't forget, even the solar logos is as a crystal, DK says, to certain of the higher lives. Now, when it comes to celestial hierarchies, the term celestial kind of means heavenly, of the sky, you know, it's a vaguer word, a word more vague. And sometimes, you know, thrones, powers, principalities, you know, all of these different orders of devas, 9 orders of devas, I don't know, I haven't memorized them. The ones that we are connected with, 9 orders, yes, seraphim, cherubim, you know, all of those. They are celestial hierarchies, but so is every hierarchy in cosmos. Let's gather together, you know, all the galaxies in a certain area of space, and they come under the supervision of a particular being, just like, you know, on a much lower scale over here, what we see is a little triangular being in which the 7 stars of the Great Bear form a unit. So these must be very great beings. And maybe each one of these is a member of the same celestial hierarchy. So let's just say aggregates of great collections of very, very advanced monads can be included under celestial hierarchies. But since it's a vague term, you can even come down to the ordinary orders of angels. I wish I, had them at the tip of my tongue right now, but you know which I mean, and we could look it up even on Google. They will give you the orders of angels, and they are celestial hierarchies. So I would say that creative hierarchies mean something specific about particular aggregations of monads about which DK has said something definite and given them a number, a sign, planets, etc. He's given you a lot of specifics about the celestial hierarchies. I mean, about the creative hierarchies. And he hasn't gone any further, but all of those other things, those other creative hierarchies that he did not deal with, would also have their specifics. But for us, it means something specific. But the celestial hierarchies is a vague and general term dealing with all the different orders of being within the universe. I would say the divine septonate, which comes out of the one universal God, is itself a celestial hierarchy. And, we just can't even fill all that in on this ladder of evolution. So that, to me, they're the same, and yet they are used differently by DK, and one is more specific than the other, but it doesn't mean that we couldn't get specific about the things we haven't named, and they would be also creative and also hierarchies. In other words, every celestial hierarchy would be a creative hierarchy, but in the manner that DK uses them, he stops at 12 for creative hierarchies, and celestial hierarchy is a general religious term meaning all these different strata of higher beings. I hope that, that's the best I can do on it at the moment. And that's how I would try to differentiate, even though in a way differentiation is not hard and fast.
And Karen thanks you. And Veronica has written a couple of things. You used the word transmutation for the physical plane, but when he uses the word for the astral world, does it mean that the transmutation is on the etheric plane? That's the first one.
Okay, and I would say, the way he does describe it is transmutation, etheric physical, transformation astral, transfiguration mental, and translation Buddhic. However, if in chapter 10, on the 10th rule, he deals with higher forms of transmutation. So it depends on what kind of being we're dealing with. When we're dealing with man, the transmutative process certainly begins on the etheric physical. And you could say in a way that it continues, the whole purification that represents becomes a subset of the next dynamic, which is transformation. And it includes still ongoing transmutation, or the purification of matter, let's call it that. And then when we move to transfiguration, then transformation and transmutation become subsets of the major dynamic, which is transformation. But in chapter 10, he starts very, very high. Now I'd have to go there, and I'm afraid it would take a lot of time. If anybody can find it, it's in the Rays and the Initiations, chapter 10. Let's just see if I can do that quickly. And if not, I'll just give up and recommend that that we try to do it on our own, you know. Okay, so if I go here to Alice Bailey Books, and I take the Rays and Initiations, and I look up this word, transmutation. There are unfortunately 28 references. I don't think it's a hard and fast allocation of these words, but they do tend to be one on top of another, with transmutation being the lowest. Now tell me when I get to, that was rule 13. This should be rule 10. It should be rule 10. How many of these do we have? Hit 5, aha, I see what the problem, no, raised on initiations. So that should be it. And I'll try again. No, there's 28 here. There's going to be 28. And there's nothing I can do about it. It's already rule 12. No, I think I'm going to have to let it go. But definitely, if you look at the periods of darkness that occur in rule 10, you will see how that word transmutation is used on a much higher turn of the spiral. And I don't know, unless the word is transmutative, I don't know why I'm not finding it.
And Veronica is looking at page 5, the beginning of the second paragraph.
Okay, well, that's not the place, but it's okay. Page 5. No. Okay. Well, you're not looking for transmutation per se. So let's see if I can find page 5. Here it is. A close study of the needed transmutation of astral and emotional energy. Yeah, he's using it in a general sense into the energy of love. In other words, it is a purification, and it is not being used in a technical sense, I think, at this point. So the thing to do, Anne Veronica, is to make a compilation on transmutation all through the books, and then I think we'll be able to gather what we need. Let's see, the word dark is also really important. Again, 28, interesting. And I wonder whether, see, this is kind of what I'm afraid of getting. There we go. That is number 10, the blackness, the dark night. Okay. In this chapter, you will find something that you need about a higher type of transmutation. So these terms are relative, and they can change their levels depending upon the type of initiation and the type of being with whom we are dealing. I can't really take the time to get into this, but I know it's here, and I wish I could. I just pinpointed for you.
Look at page 282 in R&I.
You got it. Okay, there's only one 282. Okay, it's rule 13, is it? And where is that, Joe? 282, raise and initiations.
Yeah, I put it in the chat, as much as I could get.
Okay.
From 282.
For applicants, 4 things. Yeah. Okay, and that is actually let the group get ready to reveal, let the group demonstrate the higher meaning of the lessons learned. Okay. Let transfiguration follow transformation, and may transmutation disappear in the lower sense. Yeah, it's here, Joe, somewhere. The 4 different levels of blackness which the initiate has to encounter. So I see here as well that transformation for a master is a higher thing than it is for a human being. Now I'm just trying to find those 4, but I'll tell you what, if I find them, I will write to all of you and give it to you. But right now I'm just gonna Oh, look, here it is. Oh my gosh, I'm glad I didn't quite give up. Here it is on page 280. Okay, this is the first level. Transmutation concerns the expression of life force upon the 3 lower planes of human living and evolution, and maybe he means actually the 3 lower planes. Transformation concerns in a most peculiar manner the 3 aspects of mind upon the mental plane. This is a different way of approaching. Transfiguration concerns the life of the spiritual triad and upon its own 3 levels of identification. And there is also a this area here. Just read here and we'll see the way he elevates the idea of transmutation. And of all of these, they are given a place on a higher turn of the spiral. Look at here, to give you an idea. Then follows, as a result of this, what is called the true transfiguration. Okay, now normally we consider that one will be taking the 3rd initiation, but here he gives us a different point of view, which suggests to us that he can raise the whole grouping onto a higher turn of the spiral. How does he go? Know, express, reveal, destroy, resurrect, right? Know, express, reveal, destroy, resurrect. He starts that in the earlier books on the 1st level. But then the resurrection would occur as we normally think of Jesus being resurrected. But then he starts the word know at the 3rd initiation, and resurrection becomes the 7th, which is true. Now here's an idea that gives us an idea of how to move a series of processes from a lower focus to a higher. Then there follows, as a result of this, what is called the true transfiguration. This enables the initiate to function upon the logoic or highest plane of the cosmic physical plane. The true transfiguration, not a mental plane phenomena, not a higher mental plane phenomena, it's been lifted. This, in Christian phraseology, is called, quote, sitting down upon the right hand of God in heaven. Now, basically what this means is that the Christ and the Buddha are becoming transfigured initiates in the Syrian scheme of initiation. There, the man who has attained this seventh initiation is transfigured. The first contact comes along the line which he has projected as a result of transformation. It is made with that which has ever overshadowed Sanat Kumara, and the Chohan now takes the seventh initiation. So we could take the time to look, but it probably means that transformation relates to the sixth degree and transmutation to the fifth degree. That's a guess on my part, but I think, they are going down with transfiguration, the third, relating now to the seventh. So I think this is a movable scale, and he's given us two of the places where it applies, to the human level and to the level of the highest initiates. Now, maybe we can find a way that we can use these three, transmutation, transformation, transfiguration, all along the intervening points of tension. And what do we have here?
And Veronica has another easier question, perhaps.
Well, wait a second. Now you've got me going. Sorry. Just hold on. Okay, here it is. Look. I'm not completely out of my mind, though getting there. It is the force of will generated by the master. The first ray rules the fifth initiation. Okay. It is the force of will generated by the master during the process of attaining the fifth, working in the three worlds of creative salvaging, achieving ashramic purpose and consequent group activity, manifesting ray energy, demonstrating a faculty which is known only to initiates who have passed beyond the third initiation. And this provides the focused attention which enables the master, see the higher initiate, to attain what is called transformation, and later to project the dynamic impulse of his spiritual will in such a manner that he succeeds in piercing the planetary ring pass knot, and he's given freedom of the world and not just freedom of the worlds. And apparently he's dealing with the fifth and sixth initiation. So my final statement on this, until I study it further, is that we can apply, and usually do, transmutation to the etheric physical level, transformation to the astral level, and transfiguration to the higher mental. But those same terms apply to the high initiate, the master, and end with transfiguration going to the seventh level and not the third. And that reminds us of St. Paul, who said he was caught up in the third heaven as it reflects the seventh, which DK tells us was perfectly meaningless to everybody doing the translating and the, I don't know, the writing down of what he said. And therefore, they did not include the relationship between the seventh heaven and the third heaven. Okay, all of this is about the relativity of terms. And if we get a basic idea of what each of these words really means, transmutation means purification. Transformation has to do with the relationship between forms, between the purified forms in what we might call right relationship. Transfiguration has to do with glorification. And the Christ is a glorified third degree initiate, becoming so, as is the Buddha, but it's more important for the Christ in terms of the Syrian scheme of initiation. Now, what was the easier question?
Right. And Veronica writes, what is the differences between permanent atoms and chakras? It says in Leo, the hierarchy works with the chakras and the Dark Lords with the permanent atoms.
Not only. The solar angels are experts in working with the permanent atoms, and they are basically the unit upon which the vehicle is built as that, and within the vehicle, starting from the logoic plane and not shown on the map, is the whirlpool or vortex which shows up as the different chakras on all the different levels. So first build the vehicle. That's the job of the permanent atom, because around that permanent atom, all the constructive activity occurs, and the aggregation of substance which makes the vehicle is generated by the permanent atom. But within the vehicle, there start to be 7 vortices of force on the logoic plane. They're not shown. They're only shown down here. And these vortices continue downward through the denser matter of the other planes until 49 of them exist. Now, we're told that 35 vortices of force, is that how it goes, make a master. Does he use the word vortices? 35 master. I'm afraid to go hunting again, you know. I think it's in, you know, because when you start to go hunting, anything can happen. 5. Oh, there's only one, so let's hope it's the correct one. No, it isn't. It isn't the correct one. But anyway, the idea is that I wonder if I can get 35 vortices. 35 vortices. No, I don't think so. No, it's not going to work. But, oh, because I spelled it wrong. Vortices. 35 circulating fiery vortices extend along the circle of the periphery. Okay, well, that's one. Here it is, because the word is not master, it's adept. All right, here we go. Now, this is in cosmic fire, is it? Motion in the centers? I don't know. Is it cosmic fire? Yeah. There are manifest 35 vortices of fire in the perfected adept, all of radiant activity and all interacting. So, they're not drawn, nor are the vortices of the Buddhic plane drawn. But we're told there are 35 here. And that leads you to the conclusion that the Chohan can demonstrate through 42 vortices of force. Is that what we got there? Yeah. Of fire, not force, fire. And the liberated Chohan of the 7th degree can demonstrate through 49. So that's where we get our 49 fires. Now, the vehicles through which they manifest are created by permanent atoms. Every permanent atom in the spiritual triad has 3 circles of spirille, and rather than 7 in the lower ranking. So the monastic permanent atom, 3 vortices, spirille. Not vortices, but well, they are spirals. 3 spirals, I'll call it that. The Buddhic permanent atom, 3 spirals. The Atmic permanent atom, 3 spirals. Okay, now it is not told us whether, okay, it's not told to us whether there are permanent atoms for the Temple of Ezekiel or any other kind of higher structure in the Sea of Fire. But permanent atoms are building the form through which these 7 spirals, starting on the logoic plane, make their way down all the way to the etheric chakras. The reason the Black Lodge is involved is they work with form first. They work with the outer aspect. The permanent atoms, in a way, represent the 3rd aspect of divinity, and the Black Lodge works from the outside in rather than from the inside out. But very definitely, the solar angels, who are very high beings, even compared to our masters, work with attuning the permanent atoms and adjusting karma and doing all that kind of thing. So it's not just the Black Lodge that works with the outer. The actual work upon the permanent atoms is also carried out by the solar angels. I hope that clarifies something. Now, to find that reference about the solar angels and the permanent atoms, have a good hunt. It's there. Okay.
Thank you. There are no more written questions or comments. Anne Veronica says thank you. Earlier, there was a hand raised earlier by Frida, but Frida is no longer in the meeting.
Okay, we missed her, but okay. Well, there'll be plenty of chance if we persist. All right. Well, we've certainly taken up our time, and everything the Tibetan writes is related to everything else, and the job is not so much to notice or memorize different facts and factoids, all those little pieces of info, but is to know the lines of connection between them. And if we know the lines of connection between the facts and the factoids, we will be entering the realm of pure reason. And the intuition under Jupiter will put all of the isolated paths together, those paths that have been created by Mercury. See, the 2 rulers of the common cross, the mutable cross, are Jupiter and Mercury, basically. And you want to be able to put all that together so you just see it and that would be pure reason, but you have to do the grunt work first. You have to sharpen your perspective on, or your knowledge, let's say, on each little fact. Sharpen your appreciation of every little fact. And then trace their relationships to each other, and then stand back and let the elves finish the shoemaker's shoes, to use that old, kind of nursery tale of the shoemaker and the elves. The shoemaker was having trouble, poverty, whatever, and so forth. He laid out the shoes. All the materials were there. And in the morning he woke up and they were all assembled. Why? Because the elves, representing the intuition, had done it. So through the mind, we prepare everything we can. Open up and let the intuition, through the mind Mercury, we assemble, we identify all the parts, and Jupiter makes a wholeness out of it. Okay, well, that should be enough then. And tomorrow morning, we'll be having the reappearance of the Christ, and that'll be a broadcast. And it's the most important thing we've got going, basically. DK tells us reappearance and the fact of the new group of world servers, the two most important things that he has imparted. And remember, interestingly, of the 5 masters who are preparing initially for the Aquarian age, Master DK's ashram carries the energy of right human relations. So let's do our great invocation, and my thanks to all of you for showing up and even abiding all of this. Great invocation. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Thank you, everyone. Lots of love and many blessings from Tuya and myself, and from the whole team who is here now, Biel, Joe, and Michael. And of course, Michael Crow is also helping us with Zoom things. So we'll be back tomorrow with the broadcast on the reappearance of the Christ. It will be 5 a.m. GMT at the usual live link connection, which probably is in the chat box maybe, or by now you should have it.
Yes,
And
I put it in the chat box.
Thank you, Michael. And we'll convert this and get it up on Makara as soon as is practical. And also we have Joe helping Harold get things up on YouTube.
Yes,
So,
they're all up. All of these are up on YouTube except for today.
wow. Okay. Good for you. Good for you. So thank you. And we'll be talking to you. And there's a little bit to research, isn't it? Go into chapter 10 and look at those 4 experiences of the dark night of the soul. It ends up being sort of the dark night of the monad, too. And there we will see the way that some of the processes that apply to little old us individually apply to the higher initiates. Know, express, reveal, destroy, resurrect. Bye-bye. And thank you.